Hey there, Skeleton Key here, and I am here to talk about my first quarter reading of 2022. Just hitting some highlights. I had originally planned to do like a monthly wrap-up video, and I quickly realized that that was just not going to happen. And if I go into too much detail, this video is going to be really long. So I'm just going to hit some highlights from some readathons and like my favorite book each month. So January 2022. Wow, that was a while ago. All right. Probably my favorite overall reads for the month were Solutions and Other Problems by Ali Brosh. It's sort of a mixture of cartoons and memoir, and yeah, it's really intense, but I highly recommend it. I would recommend reading her first book first. This is a sequel to... Yeah, I can't remember the name of the first book, but it's based on her blog. It covers a lot of stuff. It gets into some kind of dark and deep philosophical stuff and her depression, and yeah, it deals with a lot, but it is so worth it. I don't really know how to compare the two to say one is better than the other. They're different in tone to a certain extent. Not to say that the first one doesn't delve into some deep stuff, but the second one is much more intense, so do be prepared for that. Also, Airborne by Kenneth Oppel. I don't know if it really qualifies as steampunk. It's alternate history with airships and ornithopters and a lot of steampunky goodness. So, and I mean, steampunk is kind of a make what you will of it term. It's all about the aesthetic, but it was a fun adventure. I really enjoyed it because I think it was actually early 20th century setting instead of late 19th century setting. Gosh, it's been a while since I read it. I ended up listening to the audiobook, and I really enjoyed the audiobook. Either text or audio, I think, would be great. It's YA, but as an adult, I just thoroughly enjoyed it. And then, let's see, Winterween was in January. My favorite book from Winterween was probably 12th Night, the Season 5 New Year's special, and that was over on An Archive of Our Own, AO3, which is fanfic, and the author is Jolie_Black, JOLIE_BLACK, and that one is the Poirot Downton Abbey mashup. It's like, yeah, it's written in a script format, and it's a lost episode, the New Year's episode between seasons 5 and 6. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Then for February, at least I can't find in my notes that I did any readathons or anything in February. And I mean, it's a short month. There's not a whole lot you can do. There's Winter's Respite, so everything counted for Winter's Respite. But I'd say probably the standout for me in February was The House in the Cerulean Sea. It's been described as middle grade for adults, and I feel like that's pretty accurate as to the tone and everything. It is not a kid's book, although I don't see why a teenager wouldn't enjoy it. But some of the themes running through it are, probably a little bit more than your typical middle grader is interested in reading about. But it's a love story. And I liked that the characters in the romance were older. It is a queer romance. I loved the characters. They were very well distinguished, and they were just so interesting. And I think the book had a lot to say about acceptance of all kinds. Not just queer, but also neurodivergent and different belief systems. And yeah, I I thought it was, and I do know people who did not like it or did not think it was all that, and I understand their criticisms, and yes, I'd say there are valid criticisms of this book, but I think so many of us just needed a warm hug of a book in February of 2022 that yeah, we'll forgive a lot for that. So so that's February. So March. And I've done separate videos for a lot of these, like Middle Grade March. My favorite from Middle Grade March was The True Story of Jim the Wonder Dog, which is the true story of Jim the Wonder Dog, and also a nice section on evaluating sources. Then Readathon. My favorite there was Confessions by Kane Minato, which, yes, I know, Japanese author, not Korean author, but it was for the celebrity recommendation prompt. Yeah. But also in February and March, I judged for the BookTube prize. And now that it's April, it's no secret that the top ranked book for me in my reading group was Ruth Ozeki's The Book of Form and Emptiness, which, yeah, set aside some time for this. I'm actually going to do, because I had to zip through it real quick, because it took a while to get a copy. And I feel like, yeah, I mean, I loved it, but I feel like I didn't get to, like, sit with it as much as I wanted. I didn't get to savor it, so I'm actually doing a closer read of it. So, yeah. Oh, Spring into Reading was actually March. I was thinking this was April, but no, this was a March readathon. So this is the Seasonathon Bingo, and as you can see, I did the O column. And I didn't do a separate video on that, so I'll just go through all of the books that I read for this. For Life's a Beach, read an easy book. I read Star Wars, Luke and the Lost Jedi Temple, and that was basically a last minute, let's see what Hoopla throws at me read. And it's apparently a novel, a Star Wars novel that was kind of scaled down for kidlit. And maybe a really young reader would appreciate it, but there wasn't really anything to it, and it didn't really even make any sense. And so I'm like, yeah, I thought it was kind of bad. Then Luck of the Irish, read a book with green on the cover. So I read Who Moved My Goat Cheese, which is a cozy mystery set in Idaho. It was fine. It was okay. I didn't think it was really anything special. I probably will try at least one of the recipes, because that's one thing about reading foodie cozy mysteries, is you usually get a good recipe out of it. Oh, I did try the recipe. Yeah, I think I've got on a video somewhere that I did the potato soup. Yeah, there were no goat cheese recipes, so that was kind of disappointing. I did make the potato soup recipe, and I'll make some changes to it. It called for a lot of sausage, and I'm not entirely convinced it actually needs any sausage, but I'm not much of a carnivore, so, take that for whatever it's worth. See, Love is in the Air, read a romance or a book centered around friendship. I went with The Island of Sea Women by Lisa C. And that's a pretty long book. I started it sometime last year, but I finally finished listening to that. And I didn't stop listening to it because it was bad or anything. No, I thought it was a really good sort of family historical saga. It covers a lot of time, but it refers to these women on the Isle of Jeju, and they're divers. They dive for seafood, and they're just plain old badass. And it talks a lot about their lives, and also going through all these historical events, wars, covers everything, and there's a lot of dark stuff in there, so do be prepared for that. But I thought it was really well written. I think this might be the first Lisa C. book I've ever read. I know I have other books by her, but I haven't read them yet. But I thought the prose flowed beautifully, and it really captured sort of the essence of what these women went through. So yeah, I would recommend that one. Women's March. Read a book with a strong female character. And for that, How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House. And that one I rated second in my BookTube Prize judging group. And that's by Sherry Jones. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty amazing book. It is not pleasant. It is not a fun read. I mean, there's some dark humor in it, but for the most part, it's pretty dismal. But it is so well written, and the construction of it. If you're up for something depressing, and yeah, I highly recommend it. And then Tiny Umbrella, drink your favorite iced beverage. And I hate the word favorite, but I do love orange juice. And so one time with breakfast, I had a glass of ice cold orange juice. I don't think it had actual ice cubes in it, but it was very cold. And so that is spring into reading. There were a lot more activities and things that you could do, but my March was kind of crazy, so I didn't really look into the other activities that were going on for spring into reading. Then there was Aurelium Gear Up, and I read 2 books for that, and right now I couldn't tell you what they were. And I don't remember what the prompts were exactly, and I've gotten super fuzzy on the whole Aurelium setup. This started last fall, and Gia at Book Roast has put together this. It's her magical readathon, and it's extensive, and wow, it's detailed and everything. And so I don't have written down here what the prompts were for the Gear Up in March, but I do have noted that Winter in Sakcho was a book for one of those prompts. I have very mixed feelings about that book. I thought it was well done. I just didn't get it. And yeah. And then the other one I have down for the Magical Readathon is The Paris Apartment. That is by Lucy Foley. That's the second book I've read by Lucy Foley. It took me a while to get into the first book I read by her, which was The Guest List, but I did end up really enjoying that. This one was kind of the opposite. It started off with all these gothic vibes, secret staircases, and I'm like, I am here for this. But ultimately, a lot of stuff just didn't make any sense, and it didn't really have that Paris vibe to it. And I'm like, it's called The Paris Apartment. I need more Paris. And the main character, the protagonist, was just really stupid. I'm like, why am I in this woman's head? Because she's too stupid. And yeah. It did not gel for me. So I think I probably end up giving that one 2 stars. But anyway, this is supposed to be highlights. I'm supposed to be focusing on the positive. So I don't really have, I guess I liked Winter in Sakcho better. I didn't understand it, but I appreciated it. It was definitely better written. So there you go. In March, probably another book that really stood out to me was probably My Dark Vanessa. I read that for the F's Up Book Club, and it is effed up. All the trigger warnings about SA and emotional manipulation and head games and gaslighting. It's just wow. And I don't really have time to go into all of the author's background and commentary surrounding the book and all that, but I think it really speaks to the author's ability. I'm blanking on her name, but I really think it does speak to her ability to make the reader understand this young woman's headspace. And it starts when she's in high school, and then it goes back and forth. It's a dual timeline thing. And it goes back and forth with her life as a young adult, a new adult in her 20s, and as a high schooler, and her relationship, such as it is, with this older teacher, and what she has to deal with and how she doesn't deal with it, and then all of these different other relationships that she's in that suffer so badly because of this one man. I think it's incredibly well written. It's definitely not for everybody, but yeah, wow, it packs a wallop. I think that might be all I have for the first quarter of 2022. Please let me know if you have any thoughts on any of these books or these readathons that I participated in. And chat in the comments below. And in the meantime, please like and subscribe, and see you around.